Hello, and welcome to Global AI Notes. My name is Alicia Moniz, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Daniel Laskewitz. Today, we'll be discussing how to build your own agent with Microsoft Copilot Studio. Hi, Daniel. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're going to talk about today?
Sure. My name is Daniel Laskewitz, and I am a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft. And we have senior cloud advocates at every basically category. So we have people in AI, we have people in Microsoft 365, but we also have people in Power Platform, and that's the team where I am in. And that's how I am working with, for instance, Microsoft Copilot Studio, but also with Microsoft Power Apps, Power Automate, all the low-code tools within the Microsoft ecosystem. And that's also why I'm here today. I'm going to talk about Microsoft Copilot Studio.
Yeah, and I saw you have quite a few videos on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I like to record some videos and post them every once in a while. I should be better at it because I'm not the most consistent person on YouTube, but I'll try to do that as much as possible.
Okay, we're looking forward to that. So for today's audience, we're going to go ahead and get started with Daniel's presentation. But if you'd like to drop questions into the chat, I'll select a few to ask him as he's going through his presentation.
Okay, so let's start with the slides. Yes. So today I'm going to talk about build your own agent with Microsoft Copilot Studio. And for today, I'm going to talk about three different sections. The first one is a little bit of an overview on Microsoft Copilot Studio, because I think there will be a bunch of people that don't know about Copilot Studio, what it exactly is and what it does. Then I'm going to talk about building agents with Copilot Studio, and then I'll talk a little bit about extensibility. So let's start first with the Copilot Studio overview. Copilot Studio is part of the Power Platform, and the Power Platform is the low-code platform within Microsoft. We have a bunch of products. The most familiar one is probably the one on the left side, and that's Power BI. And that's where it all started with, actually. We also have Power Apps for application development. We have Power Automate for process automation. We have Copilot Studio for building Copilots, and Power Pages for building public websites that connect to all the business data that you have. And underneath that, we have a bunch of supporting services. And I think it's really important to talk a little bit about that, because we're going to touch on that as well during the demo. So the first part is Power FX, which is the formula language inside of the Power Platform. So they don't have C# or something that we are using inside of the Power Platform, but we have a different formula language that makes it easier for people that don't have a coding background to still use powerful formulas, for instance. And you can kind of look at it as like it's Excel, for instance, because a lot of the formulas are the same as Excel formulas. So you can look at that as almost the same. It has a couple of formulas that are different, of course, because they will be really helpful for all the low-code products that we have, but a bunch of them are also the same. Then we have Dataverse, which is basically a database plus, and it gives you a lot of features out of the box. You can create your own tables. You have a really sophisticated security model in there so that you can use all kinds of security measures inside of that database as well. We also have connectors, and connectors are kind of the glue in the Power Platform, because it will enable you to connect to all kinds of backend services. So the connectors are basically a description of an API, and because we describe them in the connector, then all the other tools can work with it. So for instance, you can create one connector, and then use it in all the different tools in the Power Platform. So you can, for instance, create an app that will connect to an API. You can also create a Copilot that will connect to an API, or maybe a process automation stuff even that can connect also to an API. And we already have a bunch of connectors that are out of the box. So we have 1,200 connectors now already out of the box. And those are Microsoft services, but also Salesforce and Google services. There are all kinds of connectors already available. And if you have a service that you want to connect to and that's not available, you can also use custom connectors. And you can add those to the Power Platform as well to connect to those services as well. We also have AI Builder, and AI Builder is the low-code AI service within the Power Platform. And with AI Builder, you can use out-of-the-box models, or models that need a little bit of training, for instance. And it's way easier for people that don't have a machine learning background, for instance, to use AI in those low-code products. And last but not least, we have managed environments. And managed environments is a way for administrators to make it easier for them to govern and administer the platform. And when you turn this on, it kind of has kind of a mode 11. So when we talk about like turn it up to 11, that's basically what managed environments is. But first, let's talk about Copilot Studio. And Copilot Studio is a product that can help you build your own Copilots or your own agent. And what it can do is it can create your own agent, basically. So you have control over everything what happens in that agent. But you can also extend an existing Copilot. So we at Microsoft now have a bunch of Copilots. We have Microsoft 365 Copilot. We have Copilot for sales, Copilot for service. There's a bunch of different Copilots that we have. And Copilot Studio is the place basically to extend those Copilots. So it's not just for your own Copilot, but also for Copilots that you get from Microsoft, for instance. So let's talk about how to build an agent. First, of course, you can start by creating an agent. Then you can design the conversation. So you can add topics to your agent. You can add data to your agent. So if you want to, for instance, include data from a public website, or you want to get it from somewhere else, you can do that as well in the step to design the conversation. After that, you of course want to publish it. You want to make it available for people. You can publish it to a whole bunch of channels. So you can publish it to Teams, for instance. You can publish it to Facebook. You can publish it to your own website if you want to, your own app. You can do all kinds of things there. And that will make it available for people in a lot of different channels.
And may I ask a question for those new to Copilot? Could you let us know what an agent is?
An agent is basically, it's almost like a chatbot. So when you have like a chatbot, you can let it talk to a person. When you can do proactively talk to an agent, so you can start talking to it and ask some questions. But you can also let the agent, for instance, proactively talk to you and offer you some different options for the agent, for instance. So it's more of a chatbot. That's kind of the other name for it, basically. And we are really good at renaming stuff at Microsoft. And last week there was an event with Microsoft which changed it from Copilot to agent. So I need to get used to it as well. But it used to be Copilot. Then it was it used to be chatbot, then it became Copilot, and now it's agent. So we have had a couple of different names, but it's basically a chatbot that you can use.
Thank you.
Point 4, manage. Of course, when you are done with creating your agent and you have created all kinds of topics, edited data, and you have published it to different channels, you also want to make sure that you know what's happening within your agent. So you want to know for sure that it is doing the right things, that it is responding to the needs of the people that are using your agent. And that's where the last step comes in, and that's where you can control and improve. So you're able to see the analytics on how your Copilot or your agent is responding to the user questions and how they are liking it, because they can also give ratings to the conversation. So that's also a good thing. But when you are building your own agent, we follow a sort of a life cycle, and we start at the top with creating an agent. Then we can add knowledge to the agent. I already said public websites, for instance, but you can also add SharePoint sites, OneDrives. You can add a whole bunch of documents if you want to by uploading them. You can add topics to your Copilot and add all kinds of logic to it. Then you also have the option to add actions and plugins. And actions and plugins are really connected to the connectors that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So actions and plugins make it possible for you to connect to all kinds of backend services. And that's something that's also really cool. And multiple channels is the part where you are publishing your agent to the different channels. So if you want to publish it to a website, if you want to publish it to an app, to Teams, to Facebook, to Slack, there are tons of possibilities there. And then after that, you can also monitor and improve. So you can look at all the analytics that are there and maybe change some things in the logic, if that makes sense, or add extra actions and plugins, because you see that a lot of people are asking certain things, but they don't have anything in the agent that will respond to that. And lastly, you also have the option, when all the low-code tooling is not enough, you can still extend with Azure. So you still have the possibility to, for instance, use Azure AI on your data. Those kinds of things are also possible there.
So I did have a quick question about when you're, what are some of the design considerations that go into deciding between landing data in the Dataverse versus landing data in, say, an Azure SQL instance?
What are the design considerations for using Dataverse or not? Is that a question?
Yes.
Okay, so Dataverse for me, it helps a lot when you already have a bunch of data in there. So when you have CRM data, for instance, if you look at Dynamics 365 for sales, which is the product that a lot of companies around the world use for their CRM data, for instance, that's also in Dataverse. And it really helps when you have that data already there, but also when you are considering doing CRM data in Dataverse, you can still go there. Or if you have your own custom tables that you want to add there, you can always go to the Dataverse side. But we're not limited to only Dataverse. I want to make that very clear. Dataverse is really a good option for when you have people that are not really familiar with a bunch of databases, or when they don't have the technical knowledge for a lot of stuff. So it's really a low-code option for you. But if you already have a bunch of databases on Oracle, or you have it on SQL or whatever, you can still use those. It's not that you only have to use Dataverse. So I want to make that clear as well. Yeah?
Thank you.
Okay, so when we are building an agent, you can get started really quickly with templates. We have a bunch of templates available. I'm going to show that in a demo a little later as well. You can also use natural language. So you can describe your agent, and then it will ask you a bunch of questions, and then it will generate an agent for you. You can also create a visual canvas. So you can use those topics that I was talking about a little bit earlier, where you can design the whole conversation there. And we also have an option to switch to YAML. So when you are in one of those topics, you can switch to code, and then you can see the YAML code behind that's in there. And that can also be used to reuse all the topics that you have, for instance. So if you want to have multiple Copilots or multiple agents, and you want to reuse that YAML, you can also do that. Next part is about the knowledge. So I already told you, you can use public websites. You can use files, for instance, if you want to upload them. You can add SharePoint and OneDrive, Dataverse data. There's a bunch of data that you can add to your agent. And then you can have multi-turn conversations with that. So you can talk to that data, and then you will get responses. You can dig deeper, etc. That kind of stuff. So there's a lot of possibilities there. But without talking too much, I want to also go into a demo. So let's go to the demo and show that right now. I hope the screen is visible now. So yeah, in this case, we are going to use a template. At the top here on the homepage of Copilot Studio, when you go to copilotstudio.microsoft.com, you can go to the Copilot Studio homepage. And then here you have a box where you can add some text to create your own agent. We have a couple of examples here as well. So if you want to do a help desk agent, it will already describe a little bit of that. But in this case, we're not going to use that. We're going to use one of the templates. And we have a bunch of templates there that can help you get started really quickly. So in this case, we're going to go with Safe Travels. And this is a template that we can use. We also have template instructions here. I'm not going to go into that right now, but if you want to know all the details about this template, you can go to the template instructions. You will end up on Microsoft Learn, and that's where you can start learning about what you can, for instance, configure in this agent. As you can see, there are a bunch of things here already configured. You have the name, you have the language here, you have a description, we have instructions here, and we have knowledge here. There is a US travel website that is being added to this agent, and that will be there out of the box when I use this template. When I click on it, I can also open it or delete it if I want to. But in this case, I'm just gonna create this Copilot. And this really shows how quickly you can get started with creating this agent. And it should take a couple of seconds until it's loaded. And then we are already in Copilot Studio in the Copilot view. So what you can see here is that we have an overview, we have a knowledge tab, we have topics, we have actions, analytics, and channels. The channels I already talked about a little bit earlier. That's where you can configure the different channels that you want to, for instance, Microsoft Teams, etc. You can add that as well. There are some grayed out here because I have not configured authentication yet, but you can do that yourself, of course. But let's go back to the knowledge part, because here we have the US travel website, and I kind of want to add something else because I am not from the US, I'm from Europe, so I want to add another website for it. So let's add a public website, and let's paste that in there. And here I have a website, europa.eu, and that's a website for European citizens that can learn more about travel and that kind of things. So I'm going to add that. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to add it to the agent. And now I can start asking questions already. So let me refresh this really quickly, and then I can ask a question. For instance, what is the US visa policy? And that will ask the question. It will respond to it. And here we can already see that we have a bunch of answers. And when I hover it, you can see at the bottom left that there is a travel.state.gov website where it comes from, and that is the US travel website that we just saw in the agent. And now I'm going to ask another question. When do I need to show a passport or ID card within Schengen, which is more of a European question? So I'm going to send that as well. And then I get a response from the europa.eu website, where you can see the page where it came from. So this is how relatively easy it is to get started with this this knowledge. But we can also do other stuff. We can also add other parts. So what I can do here is also I can add SharePoint, for instance, and I can add a SharePoint URL. I have a IT website on this tenant, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add that website to it, and I'm going to add it to the agent. And then when I refresh the testing pane, I can ask a question about it. For instance, where can I report a lost device? And then this should come up with an answer from the SharePoint side, if all goes well. There we go. Oh, it goes through a different one, by the way. Let me try it again. Where can I report a lost device? Let's hope this will work. No, it uses a different source, so it doesn't use the SharePoint site in this case. So I'm not sure why that is happening, but I will look into that later. For now, let's move back to the slides. When we are done with all the knowledge and that kind of stuff, we also want to, of course, have our own topics sometimes, our own kind of conversation that we want to design all the way. We don't want generative AI to do everything, basically. So what we want there is maybe we want to have more of a structured conversation. And that's what we can do with topics. And that will make it possible for us to, for instance, also perform actions on that in that topic, for instance. So if we want to maybe have an SAP table that we want to read, we can do that as well in the topics. And we can also have like if conditions, switch statements, etc. There's a whole bunch of options there. And that will enable us to design our conversation how we want to do that. Also, if we want to, we can, whenever we have an agent and we want to create that, or make that agent available inside of our website, for instance, or in a web app, we can change the UI however we want. So if we want to change the coloring, if we want to change how it looks in that website or in that web app, you can do that as well. And that's where we have the samples for. A little bit about the channels. There are a bunch of channels available. So we have Facebook, we have Twilio, we have Slack, we have a whole bunch of different things. But not all of them are available out of the box. You always need to kind of configure a little bit. So for Facebook, for instance, you need to make sure that your authentication, what I showed earlier, is configured. So you need to set up an app registration and that kind of stuff for Facebook as well, to make that possible to publish it to those channels. So sometimes there's a little bit more more work to be done when you do that. But most of the scenarios are really well thought out already, and you can look at Learn, for instance, to see how you can do that, for instance. Let's talk a little bit about extensibility. Because with extensibility, we can also use actions. And actions are the connectors that we talked about earlier. So we can use those 1,200 plus connectors. And at the bottom, you can see a bunch of them. So you can see MailChimp, you can see Dataverse, SQL, Workday. There are tons of different connectors available. And you can connect those to your agent as well if you want to. You can add those actions to your Copilot. But one thing I really want to show you, and that's a really cool thing, is AI prompts. And that's something that I'm going to show you right now. So let's move to that demo relatively quickly. Here we go. And let's go to the topics. So here are a bunch of topics already available. There are some custom topics like greeting, goodbye, what can I ask, for instance. Those topics I can all customize if I want to. There are also some system topics. like fallback, escalate, end of conversation. Those you get all for free when you create your first Copilot or your first agent. And you can also customize those if you want to. In this case, we are going to add a topic, and I'm going to choose from blank. You also have the option to create from description with Copilot, but let's start with the from blank. In here, I want to name it something. So let's call this travel plans. And next, I want to edit the trigger phrases. And those are the phrases that we need to get this topic triggered. So I'm going to add a travel plan here. And I'm going to add, can you help me build a travel plan? And for me, that's currently enough because I want to go to the next step. And the next step, I want to ask with an adaptive card because I kind of hate it when an agent is asking me a bunch of questions and I need to answer them one by one. So I want to have an adaptive card because with that adaptive card, I can easily paste the adaptive card here. And with that adaptive card, it's possible to ask for multiple questions and let somebody submit the form, for instance. And for me, that's a lot easier than having question after question after question. For the next step, we are going to call an action. And in here, I am going to create a prompt. And this is with the AI Builder service. But when I click on this, it opens a prompt builder. And I really like this experience because what you can see here is that we can enter a prompt name, we can enter a prompt, we can use inputs and all kinds of other stuff to configure a prompt for us. So here I'm going to use the travel plan prompt, and I'm going to add a prompt here. And I see that I have a little typo in the beginning, but let me fix that one. So what I'm saying here is, please give me number options for activities in destination for people who are there for the first time. Please return a numbered list with emojis in the name of the activity and give it a brief description. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change these placeholders. So number, for instance, is a placeholder. I'm going to create inputs for that, and then I'm going to replace the placeholders for that. So let me add number here. I'm going to add some sample data, and that's just 3 in this case. I'm going to add another input, and let me just enter destination here. And in this case, I'm going to add Amsterdam, the Netherlands. I'm going to replace the placeholders by the actual input. And then you will see why I did that, because what I can do now is I can test a prompt. And when I test the prompt, it will use the sample data that I have here. So in this case, it will generate a amount of activities, three that I used as a number. So it will give me 3 different activities in Amsterdam. And what I can see here is that I can take a bike tour, I can go to the Keukenhof Gardens, and I can go to the Rijksmuseum. So these are the options that I have. I quickly want to show you this as well. We also have the option to add data to it. So what we can do is we can ground in Dataverse this prompt. So for instance, if you have a lot of Dataverse data, you can easily use that. We have an option for output, so we can use text or JSON. In this case, it makes sense to have text, but in other cases, it might be interesting to have JSON as well. And we can pick our model and the temperature. So I can also go to 40 if I want to, and I can set the temperature. In this case, I'm just going to use I'm going to save the custom prompt, and then I'm going to finish this demo because we're almost out of time. So here we go, and we have the prompt here. I can easily now, because we had that adaptive card here, I can now easily add the inputs from here. So I can add destination here, and I can select number here. And those are the outputs from the adaptive card. And of course, I also want to have this in a variable. So I'm adding a variable here, and I'm going to replace it by prompt output so that it has a meaningful name. And I am going to add the send a message node. And in here, I want to also send the output of the prompt. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. And here we can see prompt output.text, and that's the output text of the prompt. And with that, I'm going to save it. And I will ask a question. So I'm going to say travel plan, and it should go into the travel plan. And here we go. I can now enter a place where I'm going to, and I'm going to Chicago in the upcoming months. So I want to have a couple of activities for that city. And here I can see that I can go to the Millennium Park, Navy Pier, or Art Institute of Chicago. Let's quickly wrap it up. I have some resources here. There's a link to try Copilot Studio. We have some Copilot Studio snippets. Those are the YAML snippets that you can use for the Copilots. And we also have a prompt library where we have a bunch of prompts like the one that I showed you just now with the travel plans. And you can reuse those as well. We have an implementation guide, which is a PowerPoint doc where you can see a whole bunch of things you need to think of when you are implementing Copilot Studio at scale. And we have the AI Builder prompting guide, but I think a lot of people here in the AI community already know how to prompt. So I think that this is not really a resource that's really valuable for you. But it is a nice prompting guide where it will guide you through all the steps to create a prompt. And with that, let's open up for a bit of questions, if there are any.
Yeah, so I'd like to welcome you to drop some questions. And a quick question for you, Daniel. Would you be able to talk a little bit about how licensing works with Copilot?
Yeah, it's a bit different than what most people are used to when they work with Azure, because Copilot Studio, it's more of a software as a service kind of thing. And what it does currently is that you can buy message packs for your own custom Copilot or your custom agents. Sorry, I'm still getting used to the naming. It's horrible. But when you want to use your own custom agent, you have to buy message packs, and you can make sure that you license it that way. You can also extend the Copilots, the Microsoft Copilot, so Microsoft 365 Copilot and Copilot for Sales, for instance. When you do that, you usually have enough of a license when you have a license to that Copilot. So then the Microsoft 365 Copilot license is enough for you because you're extending that also. So that's a bit of a difference. So you have like the build your own agent and extend the Copilot, and those are the different types of licensing that we have.
Okay. And I saw that the Power Platform Copilot Challenge is coming up. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have Copilot everywhere in the Power Platform. We have it in several levels, basically. So we have maker Copilots, which are more for the people who are creating the apps, the flows, the Copilots or agents, etc. But we also have Copilots for the end users of the apps, the flows, the Copilots, etc. So there's a lot to learn there. And that's why we have the Copilot Challenge there for Power Platform, because there's so much Copilot going on in the Power Platform that it's sometimes hard to keep up. And that's why we kind of push to have the whole challenge there to make sure that everybody can keep up in a better way.
Yeah. So outside of the challenge, what are some recommendations for people to keep up to date on the latest and greatest news?
Yeah, I think the best way is to just follow the blogs of the products, and a bunch of the products also have like monthly updates. So they have a recap every month of what is happening, and what they also have in there sometimes, it's not at all the products, but for instance, Power Apps has that they have a section on the documentation also. So you can see what's new in the documentation, and that sometimes helps people as well. So make sure to go look for those big recap blogs that are really long, but they are really nice to read compared to all the different parts, basically. So make sure to check out those recap blogs.
And do you have GitHubs or repositories or Microsoft MVPs that you follow as well?
Yeah, we have the, let me show you. So we have a bunch of the links on here, like the Copilot Studio snippets, the prompt library. Those are both from open source GitHub repositories that we have. And everybody can contribute to those repositories. So make sure to check them out. And there's also a bunch of MVPs that use those repositories, and they contribute to it. So it's really cool to see that as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Daniel. And I appreciated the discussion, and thank you to our audience. We welcome you to visit us next week to hear about Azure AI Search with Farzad Sinavala. And please feel free to join our community at globalai.community. Until next time, friends, be safe. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.